Hi everyone, and welcome to Southbridge Community Television. I'm your host, Max Gullickson, and today we have a very special guest. It's Shaun Moriarty. Hi, Shaun.
Hey, Max. How are you?
Thanks for coming on my show.
No problem.
Now, anybody who's spent any time down at Big Bunny or down at the Flats or anywhere around town probably already knows Shaun because he's been involved in so many things. But right now, Shaun, the latest thing that you're doing is an online newspaper. Now, what's the name of this paper?
The Citizen Chronicle.
And you just got started with that.
Yeah, we started up just after the new year started.
Okay, so I've just been noticing it online myself. But now, before we get to that, Shaun, you've had an interesting life here. You're born and raised in Southbridge.
Yep.
Okay, you're from town, and you know, we have here in our studio a video called a set of videos in our archives in the community television of Southbridge Teen Vid News, and back at an early age we had Shaun Moriarty reporting news. You have any memories of that?
I do, despite my efforts to repress. I do. I did that for a few years. Middle school and high school. Jesus Rosa and Judy Rossioli, who was a teacher at the middle school, had started this program. The Southbridge Police Department had a grant that they were working on with that, and what we were doing was a number of different students would be reading various news clippings or promotions, and just kind of getting out there in the community, and it worked out pretty well at the time, and
it seemed like it foreshadowed where you're at right now. I mean, you started the news rather early on in your days.
Shaun Moriarty reporting for Teen Vid News. Now the story on the car tournament, which pitted Southbridge High against Grafton High last Friday. It was a semi-final round of the car tournament in Worcester. The Southbridge High Pioneers took on the Grafton Indians and lost 62-59 in overtime. With 7 seconds in regulation, Grafton's Shaun Moriarty went for a three-pointer, missed, recovered his rebound, and tied the game, sending it to overtime. Grafton's Kurt Zelch hit 1 of 2 free throws with 9 seconds left in overtime to give Grafton a 3-point lead and the win, as Southbridge was unable to score.
Saturday, January 31st, 1998 at 7 p.m., there will be a family benefit for the Brodeurs, starring 4-time Band of the Year Cactus, with a special appearance by Jay Booper of Panning for Gold. DJ services by Mike Sulor of Q100 Radio at the Sturbridge Host Hotel. Tickets may be purchased at the following: Southbridge Police Department, Martell's U-Wash, the Corner Pocket, Video Haven. Tickets can also be purchased at the door. See you there.
Rumble. The Central Wrestling Alliance is coming to the Southbridge High School gym on Saturday night, January 17th, starting at 7 p.m.
Did you graduate Southbridge High?
I did, yep. Southbridge class of 2000.
You good memories?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Good teachers?
Sure. We had, most of, I teach now, so for a lot of teachers, when they think about why they teach or who inspired them, certainly that comes back locally. So for me, it was more so even in the middle school than the high school, where I had John Hopkins as a history teacher who by far and away is kind of the preeminent guy for me.
He was the one that set the course for you. Are you a history teacher?
I am a history teacher, and a lot of that goes back to him making that interesting, making it so that it's not dates and names, but actual stories and living, breathing people.
Brought it alive for you.
Absolutely. So that's what I try to do with my own classes, and for better or worse, that is largely based on guys like John Hopkins or Mr. Belanger, an English teacher in the middle school, Bill Rookie at the high school, and a number of others.
So after high school, you launched, you went to school for a little while, and then, Shaun, where I met you, I started working at Town Hall in about '03, and at that point you were already a reporter for the Southbridge Evening News. It was different back then, Shaun. I mean, you were a daily paper. What were the expectations for you? You were mainly a writer?
I was. I started as an intern with the news when I was in high school. Working with Jesus Rosa is when I started doing things with Southbridge Cable Access. and doing football, basketball with Joe Capillo. And through that is how I started my internship with the newspaper.
When you say do, you mean announcing these games?
Right, yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So
At a
Joe
young
would be
age,
the
you've been doing
play-by-play guy. I would do the color. And Joe at the time was managing editor of the Southbridge Evening News. So he kind of shepherded me into that arena.
Took you in, yeah.
And can't say enough about Joe Capillo and the Capillo family, but it started off there, and went back to school or went to college, and left, came back, and was working for the Southbridge News. Initially covering Charlton when I started, and then started covering Southbridge about the same time you had started downstairs at the town hall. And so back then, being a daily paper, our expectations were to write two bylines, 2 stories every single day.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
It is.
Oh my goodness.
And do so within that 40-hour-a-week construct. There was no overtime. Was not exactly
not available,
encouraged, and
yeah.
And as you've seen, I'm sure,
Yeah.
plenty of times, these town council and school committee meetings can sometimes they're a half hour, sometimes they're about 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
So that takes up a lot of your time, and
so you did that for a few years.
Yeah.
And then big life changes. You got married and you went back to school.
Yeah, I got married in 2006. And in 2007, the summer of 2007, for a variety of reasons, I decided to leave the newspaper industry and went back to school full time to become a teacher.
So you've been, Shaun, other than these things, you're a teacher now. You're teaching where?
I teach at Pathfinder Regional Vocational Technical High School in Palmer, or I often refer to it as Bay Path West out here.
Same kind of things as Bay Path that people in town are familiar with.
Right.
But you're teaching out there. You're teaching history at the tech school.
Correct.
It's fulfilling for you. You went to school for it?
Yeah, I enjoy it. Right now I have all of my students are upperclassmen, so I teach U.S. History 2 with juniors, and then I have a senior elective on the Holocaust and modern genocides.
Oh wow! Interesting.
Which it's a very heavy course that's a bit difficult to kind of do over the course of the year, but certainly very important and worthwhile.
Shaun, I've known you for a little while, and in my time I've known you, you've also been involved in a lot of charitable or awareness events. As an example, one that comes to mind is the Aislinn-Cipro Wiffle Ball Tournament that for a number of years you were heavily involved in, and that was a fundraiser for cancer?
So Aislinn's father, Brennan, was the photographer for the Southbridge News. And Aislinn was just a few years old when she was diagnosed with neuroblastoma, which is a fairly rare childhood cancer. And at the time, there, as is often the case, a number of different benefits and events kind of came up to try and help out with all of the medical bills and all the incendiary sort of expenses associated. So one of the things that was done was we came up with the idea of doing a wiffle ball tournament as something that would not be terribly hard to put on or too expensive to put on, and could make some money. So we did that. It ran good 10, 11 years. And the first several years, all of the money raised went to the Cipro family. Eventually, Aislinn went into remission, and the family, said that we'd love you to continue doing the tournament, but not to benefit us. Let's find somebody else. So,
I see.
We benefited a couple of other local kids who had been going through similar sort of situations. And then otherwise, if we didn't have somebody local that we knew of to benefit, the money would go to either the Jimmy Fund or to the American Cancer Society. So
you've done the Relay for Life. You've been involved with that for a long time too.
I have. We were, when I was in high school, was when the Relay started here in Southbridge. So Lou DeMauro, who at the time worked for the Cancer Society, kind of recruited some kids from the high school to take part. So that was I was there for the first year or two, and then in 2007, right after I'd gone back to school full time, is when I wound up being diagnosed with cancer. And fortunately, by about this time of year in 2008, so 10 years ago now, is when I went into remission. Later that year, that June, somebody had nominated me to be kind of what they, at the time, they were calling kind of their honorary survivors. So they would have an adult male, an adult female, and a child who would kind of be, I guess, your ambassadors for the event. So somebody had nominated me, and they asked me to do that. So that was the first time since high school that I had gone to relay. And I guess I'm of the sort that some people, when they go through the cancer type of battle, they choose to, when it's over with, to kind of bury that and put that aside and kind of never think of it or speak of it again. And others kind of use it as a platform or a source to do something else, and that's what I chose to do. So I wound up joining their organization and was a co-chair for a couple of years. And because cancer, for not just myself in terms of surviving, but my father, my grandfather both passed of lung cancer. My sister died of breast cancer. I've got far too many friends and other family that have either beaten it or have passed as a result of battles with cancer. So
it's personal.
It's definitely a personal thing that it's a nasty disease that needs to be eradicated sooner than later, and that's why we do a lot of the things we do.
You've also been involved with the Little League for a while. You've done volunteer work there.
Yeah. Started that when I first came back to town out of college. Certainly my playing days in terms of baseball had been over at that point. And I had tried playing down at Henry Street for slow pitch softball, and it just wasn't the same. Didn't fill the void in the way that I would have liked. So I started. I wanted to start coaching, but at the time I was 19, 20 years old, and wasn't so sure they were going to let some random 20-year-old kid take over a team with no coaching experience. So what my preemptive strike was, I joined the board of directors. Kind of figured that way I would have an in. So I wound up on the board and started coaching, and a few years later, the president at the time called me before the annual meetings and asked me if I would be interested in being vice president. My response was along the lines of, I don't, as long as I can coach, I don't care what job title I have. And so I thought I was going into this meeting and was going to be made vice president, and little did I know that I would then be nominated by that guy as president.
Right to the top you went.
Yeah.
Young man and all.
Yeah.
They let you coach though.
Yeah. You're just the restriction is involving all-star tournament teams. That way, a league president can't kind of muscle his way into,
I got you.
Into that.
Your orb and politics seem to travel in the same space, Shaun, because, we spent many a night out here in the town council chambers, me as the clerk and you as the counselor and then the chairman of the town council. So maybe it was that early experience being the president of the Little League that kind of prompted you to go into politics here locally. Do you miss that at all, Shaun?
I miss trying to do something that'll make things better or help people out. I don't miss the copious amounts of hours. I don't miss a
lot of commitment.
It is.
Yeah.
And it just certainly depends on how you, as an elected official, approach it. I know that I've been in meetings, council meetings, where you'll see somebody open up their packet and that tape on the seal seems to be coming off for that very first time.
I mean, rather than review it ahead of time and be ready to go.
And be prepared for this.
So
it all depends on kind of what you put into it. For me, it was something I took very seriously, so I would go to as many of the subcommittee meetings as possible. I talked to people. Whatever I had to do, I'd research things beyond what was in the packets.
More recent job for you, Shaun. Dad.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
Excellent.
Tons of fun?
It is.
Yeah, I remember them days, boy. It was a while ago for me, but yeah, but how much fun is that?
Oh, it's
busy all the time, are you?
Well, I'm regardless, I always find a way to be busy all the time.
Yeah, I think so, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know how I used to do the town council thing, because I don't see how I have the time for anything as is, and I can, every night around 7:30 is when my son Michael's being put to bed, and certainly on Monday nights up here, that's while they're probably just kind of getting into the actual action items of the agenda.
Yeah.
And I certainly prefer bedtime with my son over some of the antics that take place in council chambers.
Less stressful for you.
I don't think it was terribly stressful for me out there.
Yeah.
I think as long as you are doing what you fundamentally believe is the right thing to do, and not so much worry about what the fallout politically may be. I never ran for that spot on the council to make friends or make alliances or gain anything for myself, so that wasn't something I worried about. If I upset somebody,
I've seen a lot of people run for council, and I think every single one of them, Shaun, every single one of them did it with good intentions. I really do believe it. It's a tough job, and I know because I've clerked there for a while. But I think just about everybody really had some good intentions in their heart when they ran for a job like that, because it's not easy.
It's definitely not easy. You get, the stressful part is those who are looking to play politics and are trying to play games and make backroom deals and trying to put pressure on you one way or another. That's probably the stressful part. The rest of it, I hate to say is common sense, but that's kind of how I felt. It was the rest of it was pretty much just kind of common sense. What makes sense, both short term, long term, and what's feasible. Yeah.
So now, Shaun, because Shaun Moriarty can't keep still, you can't not be doing something new. Now, Shaun is the editor of a new online paper, the Citizen Chronicle, as we discussed. Shaun, this is right up your alley. I mean, you worked for a paper, you familiar with the format, you're a history buff. So what can you tell me about, how did this get started? Why did you start this paper?
This got started because, as you know, probably more than those who only know me from, say, council meetings, I can be a little sarcastic at times and so forth. So it was during the holiday season that, and I've made this observation before, but so the Southbridge News, which I still have, still holds a place in my heart because of the people and the time I spent there. But their switch to becoming a weekly, in my mind, has done a great disservice to this town. I understand they have to do it for their bottom line and to remain viable and still even be a paper. But it's certainly something that does not help this town. And due to the nature of the industry itself, the Worcester Telegram and Gazette has gone through a number of rolling cuts to their staff, their editorial staff. So when I was a reporter in town for the Southbridge News, not only was I at every council meeting and a good deal of the subcommittee meetings, but so was, usually Harold Gush, who you may recall.
I remember Gush, yeah.
you don't forget Gush.
Yeah.
Or John Dignam.
Right, the stringers for the Telegram.
And then eventually Brian Lee, who's still there. So these guys were always at these meetings. There were always a couple of reporters at every meeting, and things were pretty well covered. You know, a Monday night meeting, it would be both in the Telegram and the Southbridge News on Tuesday. However, with the cuts to the industry and the Southbridge paper becoming a weekly, now your Monday meeting might make that weekend's edition, might not even be until the following week. And for the Telegram, you know, I can probably count on one hand the number of times that while I was chair of the council that I saw Brian Lee in the audience. So
print news is just a shell of itself, and it's not getting better.
It's not.
And now you're looking at an online format for news, and you're starting small. Anybody else involved with you?
Yeah, we've got a good 12 to 15 people.
Oh, really?
Involved to varying degrees. There's obviously myself. Ryan Servant is our tech guy who built the website, and his wife has written a few pieces. We have Lori Schlatter, who is a retired copy editor from the Worcester Telegram and Gazette.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And she helps us out both with some writing, but primarily to help us out with copy editing, because most of our people, who are all volunteers, don't have any writing experience, perhaps beyond high school or college term papers. So that poses its own sort of difficulties. So we've had discussions both virtually, online, and in person to kind of talk about what kind of questions we ask and how we go about that, and making sure that we try to incorporate as many different viewpoints and sources as possible.
To be objective?
Right, exactly. Make sure that we are being objective, being fair. With the recent Riverside Park stuff. Yeah. You know, what we don't want to do is only talk to councilors Eau Claire and Carrasco and Nash. The pro people. We want to make sure we give an option for councilors Clements, DePietro, and Manna.
Those who are opposed.
Right, so that we have a counterpoint.
Right.
Whether or not those people decide to return phone calls is a whole other story, but at least we make the effort, which is all you can do. So
that sounds like old school journalism. This is a throwback to when you were a reporter, because any reporter knows that the best stories give both sides. And that your job is to be an objective arbiter between these two sides. Now, I can see, Shaun, right now, the only local, which is what the local paper used to be, a daily, and it was local, is the internet. I mean, Facebook pages and things like that. So you're saying that objectivity is a big part of what you're after.
To me, it's paramount. It's how I was brought up in the field by guys like Joe Capillo and Mike Saucier and John Ryan. And
so you truly are a newspaper online. That's what you're shooting for.
Absolutely. The problem with the reason that the Southbridge News has become what it's become, and why the Telegram has had to make some of its cuts, part of the problem ends up being, in the last 15 to 20 years, is an issue of immediacy. So that Monday night town council meeting, people no longer want to wait until Tuesday's afternoon paper to see what happened. They don't want to wait till the next morning to talk at Dunkin' Donuts about it. They want to know right away. And we see, if you go into some of these Facebook groups, you'll see, hey, I saw a helicopter overhead. What's up with that?
This is immediate.
Right. And it could be... It could be absolutely nothing. It could just be a med flight for a routine. It could be anything.
I've seen that. I've seen that post.
Right. So what we're trying to do with the Citizen Chronicle is trying to fill that void that the weekly version of the Southbridge News has created, and that the cutbacks to the Telegram has created, because knowledge is definitely power, and when people don't know things are going on, or not going on, as it may be.
I think it's neat. And it's a sign of the times, Shaun. I mean, this is the immediate world, and people aren't waiting for anything, right? I mean, this is the niche you wish to fill. Right here, it's sort of local.
Right. Well, I think local is where it's most needed.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go to my MSN homepage if I need to find out about the president or
yeah. If you want to know
affairs.
something going on nationally,
yeah, you got a lot of choices.
Go online, or you go to CNN, Fox News, MSNBC,
yeah,
whatever.
Ton of choices.
Whatever your choice may
yeah,
be.
But very few for Southbridge.
Right. But
and one
locally,
less now that we're in a weekly paper. So.
Right.
Well, this is good. It's timely too, I think.
Yeah. If you want to read about Worcester, you can pick up the Telegram. But
yeah, you could be like Southbridge version of the Drudge Report. I mean, you could like really.
Well,
you never know.
The goal here, though, is less partisan.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big thing, and that's something I've tried to stress is being a former counselor. I don't want people to assume that it's to push any given agenda.
Right. You're going to be even, Steven, right down, and give everybody.
Right. I mean, that's the effort.
Cool.
Make sure that all sides have the opportunity to take part. And again, if they choose not, there are some officials who have refused to return any calls to us in any of the stories we've written. So if they choose to do that, then that's fine.
If you get bigger, they might start returning your calls, Shaun.
Well,
that's what happens too. Any possibility of selling ads or making this a? So I mean, this is something that could grow.
Yeah, the plan is obviously to grow. When we started up this venture and the people involved talking about what to do, there were a number of folks who wanted to kind of hit the ground running and solicit ads. Mm-hmm. I was among those who thought that we should slow down in that regard. That we may never see a dime from this project, which is fine because the point isn't to make money. The point is to disseminate the information and provide this service. But for me, one thing we have to do before we start soliciting advertising revenue is you need to establish a base, you need to establish credibility, you need to establish a track record.
Sure.
And so I think we're working on that.
Gotcha.
We're only 6 to 8 weeks into this.
I
this
love
whole
it.
venture.
I'm following you already, and so is my wife and a few people I know. And so even though you just got started, I mean, you bring a lot of cred with you.
Well, I hope to.
Yeah.
So that becomes the game plan. Is kind of go from there, and I think we're starting to get to a point where we're providing daily content, daily original content, and we've managed to. I'm trying to think of a polite way to say it. We can beating the Southbridge paper in terms of a scoop is not difficult because of their deadlines that they have with being a weekly paper. Beating the Telegram with the resources they have is a bit of a David and Goliath type of thing. But we've managed to scoop them a handful of times already, with whether it was the Wally McKenzie resignation or some of these other things that have come about. So with that, we're I think developing a good track record already. We've not spent anything in terms of advertising or to spread the word fiscally. Everything has been word of mouth, and that's worked out well. We get plenty of traffic to the we have the website, which is thecitizenchronicle.com. We've got a Facebook page that has that sees a good deal of traffic. We have a Twitter page that we use, and that's picking up steam, and just as an ancillary thing because of the way society is, we also have an Instagram page that we use to kind of link to the website. So it's working out well, where we're hitting a lot of different platforms, and we're getting some attention. We're getting a number of businesses and organizations that reach out to us looking to see if we can spread the word on XYZ. So it's been working out pretty well.
Shaun, folks, there you have it. Shaun Moriarty and the Citizen Chronicle, the editor and longtime Southbridge gadabout. Shaun. Folks out there in Southbridge, if you have any kind of story or news that you want to share with Shaun and you run into him at Big Bunny, you can stop and let him know, or right there on your Facebook page. And it's citizenchronicle.com is your
So the website's thecitizenchronicle.com. On Facebook, you can just type in the Citizen Chronicle, and it'll be
pop
pretty easy
right
to
up.
find.
And then Instagram and Twitter also.
Right, and with that, not just in terms of passing along stories, but if anybody has an interest in helping to provide content, whether it's by being a photographer or ideally to help in terms of writing stories, covering events, covering meetings, covering sports.
So if they need to get their Creative Jones on, they have a venue to do it now.
We do, and it's not just people who are interested in these things. We've also we've got a student who's at Baypath who wants to pursue sports journalism. So for him, this is kind of a building for him. It's some clippings and some experience that he's looking to get.
Yeah.
So he was at the Clark tournament last night covering a basketball game for us.
Awesome.
And he's a high school junior and
gaining
he's
that
done
love
pretty
right
well.
now, and he's getting the knowledge of cameras and being around and creating media.
Yeah, and
that's cool.
his work has been pretty solid thus far. So
that's awesome.
I'm pretty excited about that. But
All right,
we can
cool.
always use more.
Sure. So if you're out there, you want to get your, like I said, get your Creative Jones on and help with this paper. Otherwise, folks, Citizen Chronicle, do support it and do read it. And if you're a Southbridgean such as myself, you'll find it very interesting because there's not much in the way of local news anymore. And clearly, online is the wave of the future. So that's it, folks. Why don't you get involved with that paper? Say hi to Shaun when you see him. Shaun, thanks a lot for coming on.
No problem.
Appreciate
Max,
it. Good to
thanks for
see
having
you
me.
as always. Folks, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching Southbridge Community Television. That's it.
Works for
That was a
me.
good show. We got about half an hour, though. It's kind of long. It's a little long for me. I knew 4 minutes wasn't going to do it. I just knew it.